You know, when we think about getting wealthy, our minds usually jump to things like stock charts, complex spreadsheets, and needing a finance degree, right? But what if I told you the single most important factor has almost nothing to do with how smart you are and everything to do with how you behave? And look, this isn't just some theory, it's a reality we can actually see play out in the real world. So, to really get a handle on this idea, we're going to look at a fascinating and totally true story. It perfectly shows just how differently the world of money really works. It's a tale of two guys from completely opposite ends of the spectrum. All right, let me ask you a question. If you had to put your money on it, who would you bet ends up with a bigger fortune? Would it be the top executive with an Ivy League MBA or a janitor from a small town in rural America? I'm telling you, the answer is probably going to surprise you. Okay, so on one side, you've got Ronald Reed. This guy was the first person in his family to even graduate high school. He worked manual labor jobs his entire life and was famous around town for being incredibly frugal. And on the other side, we have Richard Fiscone. I mean, this guy was the absolute picture of success. A Harvard MBA, a high-flying career in finance, a multi-million-dollar mansion, the whole nine yards. So, get this. When Ronald Reed passed away in 2014, this humble janitor, who everyone just assumed had next to nothing, left behind a secret fortune of $8 million. And he donated almost all of it to his local hospital and library. And Richard Fiscone? Well, in the very same year that Ronald Reed's secret fortune made headlines, the Harvard-educated executive, completely crushed by debt from his ridiculously lavish lifestyle, declared bankruptcy. That massive mansion of his, it was sold off at a foreclosure auction for just a fraction of what it was worth. How is that even possible, right? How does a janitor end up outperforming a finance mogul? Well, it all boils down to one simple yet super powerful idea. When it comes to your money, how you behave is so much more important than what you know or where you went to school. I mean, this just completely flips the script on how we think about finance. It's not about these complex formulas or a hard science. It's a soft skill. It's more about psychology than it is about math. And that one single concept explains the entire story of Ronald Reed and Richard Fiscone. Okay, so let's break down the two behaviors here. Ronald Reed's secret weapon was patience. He lived way below his means, he consistently invested whatever he could in stable, blue-chip companies, and then he just waited for decades. Richard Fiscone, on the other hand, was totally driven by greed. He took on enormous amounts of debt to fund a lifestyle that became a financial black hole, and eventually it just wiped him out. Seriously, think about it for a second. Could a guy who plays tennis on the weekends beat a pro like Roger Federer? No way. Could an amateur surgeon just walk in and perform a successful heart transplant? Of course not. But in the world of finance, stories like this happen all the time because simple discipline and patience can absolutely crush raw intelligence when that intelligence is paired with destructive emotions like greed and ego. Okay, so this whole story brings up another huge point. We have to completely redefine what we think wealth actually is. See, most of us think wealth is the stuff you can see, the fancy cars, the giant houses, the Instagram-worthy vacations. But the truth is, real wealth is what you don't see. This quote absolutely nails it. The second you spend your money to buy a flashy thing to show people how much money you have, that money is gone. Poof. It's been turned into an object. And usually, it's an object that's losing value. People who are truly wealthy get this. They understand that the real power of money lies in it not being spent. Real wealth isn't the sports car in the driveway. It's the money that could have bought that car, but didn't, and is now sitting in an investment account, growing and compounding for you. It's the financial assets that are working for you behind the scenes, completely unseen by anyone. All right, let's draw a really clear line in the sand here. Being rich is about your current income. It's often very visible. You see it in the big house, the fancy car, but being wealthy, that's what's left over after you spend. It's the savings, it's the investments. Wealth isn't about stuff. It's about having options, having control, and ultimately having freedom. And that right there is the real goal, the ultimate purpose of building wealth. It's not about having some giant vault of money you can swim in like a cartoon character. It's about buying the single most valuable thing in the entire world, your freedom. And this right here, this might be the most powerful lesson in all of finance. The greatest return you will ever get on your savings isn't more stuff, it's the ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. That level of control over your own life is truly priceless. Now, there's let's say, a popular term for this in the financial independence world. They call it FU money. Now, it's not about being aggressive or rude to people, it's about having a safety net. It's that cushion of savings that gives you the power to walk away from a terrible situation, a bad job, a bad boss, without facing total financial ruin. And this is what that freedom actually looks like in the real world. It's the ability to say no to a toxic boss. It's the security you need to leave a relationship that's holding you back. It's having the money to book an emergency flight to see family without even thinking about it. It is the power of genuine choice. So, if we agree that behavior is the key and the ultimate goal is freedom, what's the right mindset we need to adopt for the long haul? Because, and this is crucial, getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two very, very different games. And this is where things get really interesting, because there's a paradox here. To build wealth in the first place, you kind of need to be an optimist. You have to take some risks, believe in the future. But to keep that wealth, you need a healthy dose of paranoia. You need to switch your focus to survival, to not screwing up, and to protecting what you've built. So, how do you actually do that? How do you be an optimist and a paranoid person at the same time? Well, one really powerful mental model is something called the barbell strategy. It's a way to embrace both sides. Instead of taking on medium risk, you go to both extremes at once. Here's how it looks in practice. You keep the vast majority of your money, let's say 90% of it, in extremely safe investments. Think cash or government bonds. This is your paranoia at work, protecting you. Then you take a small chunk, maybe 10%, and you put it into really high-risk, high-reward bets. This is your optimism. With this setup, the most you can possibly lose is 10%, but your potential upside is practically unlimited. And that right there is the genius of the barbell strategy. The super safe part ensures you can survive any market crash, any personal setback, any crazy thing the world throws at you. It keeps you in the game long enough for your small, optimistic bets to have a real chance to pay off big time, letting you tap into the power of long-term growth. So as we wrap this all up, you can see it all comes back to behavior. It's not your IQ, it's not your degree, it's your habits, your patience, and your mindset. Which leads me to a final question, just for you to think about. When you look at your own financial life, what is the single behavior? Is it greed? Is it impatience? Maybe fear? What's the one thing that's holding you back from building the wealth and the freedom you really want?